Well, good evening, and welcome to tonight's debate hosted by the Wisconsin Council of Religious and Independent Schools. My name is Matt Kuso, and I'm the Executive Director of the Council.
Each candidate will get 2 minutes to do an opening statement to start off with. They'll each go up to the microphone and give their statements. Matt will be down here keeping track of time, make sure they stay within the limits. We're going to go through a series of questions that have been provided beforehand. They'll each take turns answering that question. At the end, we'll go through a 2-minute outro that they can do as well.
Sir, appreciate the work that I've been able to do with this organization for the past 8 years, and as state superintendent, I'll continue those efforts. I just want to talk a little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong Wisconsin resident. For 34 years in public education. I've learned a lot of things in those 34 years, but the main lesson that kind of drives me in this race is that I've learned that education and our library systems are the absolute foundation of our democracy. And I don't think there can be anything larger and more important than that. That is an ideal that the state superintendent has to make sure that he carries forward and that I will be carrying forward for the next 4 years. The other thing you should know about me, as I said, I've been in public education 34 years, and in those years I've had the opportunity to live all across this great state of Wisconsin, from Toma to Oakfield to Verona to Madison to Oshkosh, born and raised in Plymouth. My experience includes a number of places and places across the state of Wisconsin as a teacher, as a technology coordinator, elementary and secondary principal, superintendent of schools, and presently, and for the last 8 years, deputy state superintendent under Elizabeth Burmaster. The things that are really important about those experiences, I'll be able to start in July's hit the ground running. And we have a real and important agenda that it is so critical that we have that no time for transition. We must make sure that every child is a graduate. We must make sure that every child attends a school that is safe and a positive and nurturing learning environment. We have to make sure that we retain and recruit the highest quality teachers. We have to make sure that our funding system is fair and sustainable. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I won't rest until those things happen, and my 34 years of experience will help make that happen, but it is all going to be about the coalitions we build to make that happen. So thank you very much.
And thank you very much for this opportunity for all 5 of us to be together. These are all too rare during this primary season, and I commend you for your wisdom. And thank you for the service that you're providing with this opportunity. I am a graduate of both private and public schools. I'm the mother of 5 children, and currently I have 2 in private high school and 3 in Wisconsin's great public schools. I am the outsider in this race in more ways than one. My background is in pediatric nursing. I've worked with children my entire career and taught them just under a different license. My career in pediatric care included a couple years as an executive at one of our best pediatric academic medical centers in the country, right here in Wisconsin, Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. So I've had the experience there of managing an emergency department trauma center where I'm sure that you can imagine that's a high stress, high volume, very high stakes setting. And we have to bring all the best resources to bear for our children there. I think we need to do the same in education. My interest in this race really spiked last year during a race to defend some of our charter schools. So I am the candidate in this race who has fought very hard for choices for parents. I believe that that will be key to our success here in Wisconsin, taking us back to a position of national leadership, and I look forward to talking about that more. Thank you.
Chance to let everybody see what the differences are between the candidates and their qualifications. My name is Lowell Holtz, and I've got about 20 years of administrative experience in public education. And I have an earned doctorate from Cardinal Stritch University and have had the opportunity to serve both rural and urban districts all across Wisconsin. I think we need to focus on this position as more than just funding and no child left behind. The person you elect to this position is really the CEO of over a $6 billion operation. And I think you want somebody that has the understanding of the K-12 education system to lead that endeavor. One of the key parts of this position is that of child advocacy. And I'm one of the candidates who's received state and national recognition for being a child advocate and an educational leader. I had the opportunity to work with some outstanding educators. We were able to successfully take schools off the failing school list. We were able to turn things around in failing districts. We were able to reduce different special ed programs, and we were able to do that through collaboration and working together as a team. And I think I would like the opportunity to take that across the state of Wisconsin. We need to meet the needs of our students, community, and business. We need to be meaningful and relevant with our education. Costs and funding, we've been working with that for at least the last 8 years since Dr. Odden started with his adequacy formula. There is not going to be new funding over the next 2-3 years when you're in a recession and there's a $5 billion deficit. I'm the fiscally conservative kind of person that's been able to successfully raise academic achievement while staying within the budget, and I think that's something that we need to focus on in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
My name is Van Mobley. I grew up in Alabama, but I'm a Wisconsinite by choice. I came to the state in '91 to go to graduate school at UW-Madison. I fell in love with the land and its people, and a young woman, got married, have two young sons. Now I'm an associate professor of history and economics at Concordia University, Wisconsin, which is just north of Milwaukee. And I've also been in the administration there as well, where I participated in and played a key role in a number of things like the Center for Environmental Stewardship, the Lakeshore Redevelopment Program, and then the new proposed School of Pharmacy. I'm also a trustee in the Village of Pinkville, and I'm the only candidate tonight who's actually held elective office. I'm in my second term. Pinkville is one of 4 municipalities in the state that's entirely debt-free, and that did not happen by accident. And also, Thiensville they've been able to remain debt-free while at the same time conducting large-scale infrastructure projects like the Pigeon Creek project, which we're just getting underway right now. Finally, I'm a member of First Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Cedarburg. The congregation supports a K-8 parochial school. My own children go to public schools, but I do support with my donations the K-8 parochial school at First Emmanuel Lutheran Church, so I know some of the issues associated with the parochial schools. I began to consider running for the office in spring of 2008. The reasons was I was encouraged by a friend, and secondly, I was distressed by the inability of educational leaders in the state to see the approaching fiscal crisis and to respond in a timely way. First manifestation of this lack of leadership was the Board of Regents' decision to give the new chancellor a 33% raise in salary without following through on promises to give raises to faculty and staff at the same time that a financial crisis was approaching. Reminded me of the behavior that we saw on Wall Street. It was inappropriate. It showed a lack of vision and understanding. Second manifestation was Libby Burmasters, the state of education, who failed to even notice the financial crisis in September. When these failures of leadership concerning fiscal issues combined with my own understanding, my own capabilities and desire to lead, I decided to run. I hope that I'll get your support.
Thank you, Ben.
Well, I want to acknowledge and thank our hosts, and thank you all for participating. Regardless of the candidate you select, our state and our democracy is better served if you get out and vote. I am Todd Allen Price. I'm a father and a professor at National Louis University, and I am the progressive choice for the state superintendent. I believe that to be a progressive today means having not just a short-term, but a long-term vision of sustainability, of social justice, of ecological wisdom, and of peace. I argue that we must put the public back into public education. I fear that if education gets no increase, we will start to see the public education system erode and unravel. Case in point. The Merrill School Board talks of letting 21 teachers go. This does not just affect the students in the classroom and the schools, but the community at large. Decent paying middle-class jobs will be lost. Retirees on fixed incomes that are caught in the middle, being priced out of their homes, often vocally opposed to the spend by referendum system we have set up. Wisconsin is not alone in the school funding problem. We know that we need to advocate now for fair and progressive taxation, but we need to go further. We need, and I intend to do so, advocate for fixing the school funding formula at the national level. For too long, underfunded mandates from the federal government have been picked up by the local school districts. school districts strapped now by the forces of a failed economic policy and foolish speculation. If we work together for a broader vision, I believe we will accomplish much. But I offer that we need to work with a different perspective, one that may be difficult for those wedded to the status quo to embrace. My experience working directly with teachers, faculty, administrators, and with parents, and as a parent of 2 children, leads me to believe that we must waste no time in building and retrofitting the schools for the future, or as one of my friends said, the 7th generation. My commitment is to work tirelessly with legislators as well as Congress and our senators to advocate for real, lasting reform.
Thank you, Pat. Since Tony, you went first with the opening statements, Rose, the first question goes to you. And the first question is this: what is the most significant obstacle you believe most Wisconsin students must overcome to find success in today's school system?
Isn't that the question? That is the question in my mind. Success in learning, preparing children for their future lives, for their employment in the workforce, for their post-secondary instruction, for the things that will make their dreams come true. That's what education in Wisconsin needs to be all about. We need to judge everything in those terms, and I believe the fact that we don't currently is the biggest obstacle to making that true universally in our public school system in Wisconsin. I think that we have to judge very carefully what return we're getting on our investment in education. I believe that we can invest and protect our taxpayer at the same time, that we can make responsible decisions, that if we judge outcomes rather than always looking at the inputs, always talking about more, always looking for the latest study to direct us in practice, and missing the point that we need to look at how these lead to learning for our children. What are the results that are measurable and objective, that have value to our teachers, have value in the classroom immediately, so that they can make changes and address needs immediately, rather than looking at results of testing that happens once a year and then trying to figure out what mattered and what didn't?
Well, what I believe is the most significant obstacle is the system that we have in place right now. We have a rather antiquated industrial model of K-12 education that hasn't adapted to meet the needs of our students, of our businesses, and of our communities. I personally believe that we need to be a lot more individualized. When we work with our kids, we have to have more options for them. When we ran into some of the issues in Beloit with kids being disengaged, we found that we needed to do more. We needed to give them some charter school options. We needed to provide project-based learning opportunities for some of our kids. Every child doesn't learn the same things in the same way. We haven't adapted to the new technology era. It came to light for me when we were talking about whether we should let students have email addresses, when the morning before I'm leaving for work, my son is talking face-to-face with his sister, and I go in there and so what, he's talking to his sister, but his sister is in Yemen on the other side of the country. He has his laptop open and they're talking real time. I asked him, as a father, of course, what's this costing me? He says, it's nothing, it's free. He said with Skype. That night he split his screen and you could see he was on Facebook. He's still talking to his sister. Which they've never talked before. He's got a Wii game going over here, and he's checking the ESPN stats to see how his fantasy football team is going on. And you look how the kids learn today, and you walk into the classroom, and you see we need to do a much better job of adapting. And last but not least, when only...
Hi, buddy.
Thanks, Lowell.
I think that roughly speaking, there are 2 different primary obstacles. In some cases, the most significant obstacle is a failed school system. In the case of MPS, I think that is the case that the students in MPS are hampered by a failed school system. I know the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel had a report today that pointed out that they get weaker results with more and more money. So I think that the improvement there is an absolute necessity. A second thing that is oftentimes an obstacle is individual. And I'll give you an example. My son stutters. That's an individual obstacle that presents him with problems in school. And I know, in this case, I would like to give a kudos to the school district. The school district that he attends, they work hard with him and they help him to overcome it. So there we have an example of an obstacle that's not overcome and an obstacle that is overcome. And I think that both obstacles are the primary ones. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Time.
In a couple words, individual attention. We know from research that students benefit best when they have a highly qualified, professionally trained teacher in their classroom that is meaningfully and consistently involved in their lives. We know that a lot of students feel disconnected from school, and we know that the school is only one part. We need a connection between the school and the family and the community. And we have some solutions that are being worked on that are being used. One in particular is the IEP, the Individualized Education Plan, which we use for our special education students. I'm the candidate that's saying that every child should have an IEP. And let me clarify, every single child is special. Every child should have that type of focus and attention, a lifelong learning plan that starts from when they enter school, that tracks their progress, that keeps them and their parents involved in making the goals and owning those goals. And I think the biggest obstacle is to make school a place where kids want to go, where they want to go to grow. We need to reform our assessment system. We're driving teachers out of the profession by using a 150-year-old standardized fill-in-the-bubble test. And those are the obstacles I see. There are others too, but those are the main ones. Thanks.
Thank you, Todd. Tony?
I want to answer this question in context of one of our major platforms and things that we think are important, and that's dealing with safe and respectful and positive learning environments. I think even though our schools are safe and respectful for the most part, the problem is right now, as an example, we're facing just horrendous poverty and horrendous dysfunction and discord in families across this nation, across our school districts because of poverty, people losing jobs. And you know darn well that the public schools and the schools of our state, all the schools of our state, could very well be the most important, safe, nurturing environment that children face. Home life is going to be very difficult. So I do believe our ability to do that has been compromised significantly over the last 10 years, whether it be revenue controls or whatever. I do believe you see fewer counselors, you see less attention to emotional needs of children, class sizes are creeping up. We have to take stock of that. No Child Left Behind has hampered us in that. It has done a lot of good things for us, but with giving us focus on kids' needs. But the fact of the matter is, to face and to deal with academic rigor and look at those things, we have set aside kids' emotional and affective issues. And at this point in time in our country, we must redouble our efforts to make sure that our kids feel safe, nurtured, and exist in a positive school environment. Thank you.
Lowell, his next question first. For years, lawmakers have struggled to find new revenue sources that fund our schools and increase reliance on state property tax dollars. What, if any, new revenue sources would you propose to alleviate the current funding formula dilemma?
That's an interesting question because I actually believe it's an easy question to answer right now if you read the newspapers and if you look at your neighbors in your community. I'm right now, I live in Rock County, which has the highest unemployment rate in the state of Wisconsin. We are entering a recession, or we're already in a recession. The governor said there's a $5 billion deficit. There is not going to be new money. We have to learn how to reprioritize. We have to learn how to be a little bit more flexible. We have to get rid of some of the unfunded mandates. We have to give local communities the opportunity to say, this is what's important to us, and through DPI and our policy making, give those boards and those communities the opportunity to do that. So I don't see any magic funding formula, because if you give more funding to one school when you're capped, and there's no new revenue, you're going to be taking it away from another school. So for the time being, I think we're better off focusing on what we have, reprioritizing, and making do with the opportunities that we have by simply being a little bit more creative and giving those school boards, those school districts, and those teachers more flexibility to meet the needs of our students. Thank you.
First of all, I think Lowell is correct to note that there will be no new funding or an excess of funding running into the system in the near future. One thing that I would point out, however, is the debate over education funding is oftentimes hampered by the lack of perspective. And by that I mean people don't look at the education systems in the state as a whole, which includes the university system, the technical college system, and the K-12 system. Instead, they only look at a part. I like to look at them in a whole, and I see that actually there may be a necessity for some reforms. And let me be specific. The current economic crisis is being fueled and facilitated by declining property values now, foreclosures, and the state really needs to take steps to sort of halt that slide, or a downward spiral will be generated, be very bad for our education systems. I think one way to do that, and as a superintendent you get to propose, you don't actually make policy, but you do get to propose. One way to address that would be to do something such as to remove the technical college system from the property tax rolls, thus allowing a property tax break that would help the foreclosure crisis and thereby stabilize the economy. And then also, then you would have to shift to other areas of taxation to cover that. And I think the state should look at that and be very thoughtful of how they would shift taxation policy, not raise it, but shift it in ways that would help us get out of this economic crisis.
Thank you, Dan.
According to the Institute for Wisconsin's Future, we could recover $1 billion from corporations that are not paying their fair share in this state of ours, this great state of ours. I think it is a shame that we have companies doing business here incorporated outside of the state and they're not paying their fair share. And many of you as middle income owners are being socked for it. I think we need to, in the short term, we need to look at fair and progressive taxation measures, but I'm also willing to look at all of the taxation measures and put them on the table. This is an easy question to answer. It's hard to implement because we have to bargain and we have to negotiate for public education, unlike we have to negotiate going to war, spending untold millions of dollars, throwing it down. We need to look carefully at how we fund in the short term. But I've got a long-term solution. A federal constitutional amendment that makes sure that every single state and every single city and local school district in this country has schools that are funded equitably and adequately. We have to think out of the box here, people. If we are going to be looking at being competitive and globally efficient, our schools have to change. They have to be better. And we are served so much better by investing on the front end than the back end. It's an investment that we make in the front end that makes the difference.
Thank you. Tony?
We absolutely have to move forward and over the next decade find a system that is both fair and sustainable so that we're not arguing about this. I've been in public education, I mentioned, for 34 years, and obviously there's no magic wand or somebody would have waved it already. But that doesn't mean that we have to step back, even in this time of economic distress, and accept the fact that a child in Crandon and a child in Middleton, Wisconsin, do not have the same opportunities. It is fundamentally unfair, and it's wrong to think that we're going to have a child's education affected by where they're born. They have no control over that. So we can't just pull back. Actually, I believe this is a perfect opportunity to take a look at what sort of distribution of funds that we do have. Certainly, there's going to be no money. There's no scraps at the table to fight over. But what we can do is provide leadership, and that's where I differ. I don't believe for a minute that this job is a management job. This job is a leadership job. I've had experience over the past 8 years working with Libby to make sure we brought people together around the state to, for the very first time, create a categorical aid program for sparse and rural schools. The first time in the state of Wisconsin's history, even in times of economic distress. Did that happen because we waved some magic wand? Absolutely not. It happened because we took the time and effort and the leadership to bring people together across the state of Wisconsin. In this case, there are rural advocates, public school, private school, librarians, people that care about maintaining their quality of life in rural schools. And we created enough political will so the people led and the legislature listened. That's what this job is all about. It is leadership. We can make changes even in these difficult times.
I think that we have an imminent peril of making the school children of Wisconsin the enemy of our taxpayer. We're going to be stretched in any number of directions. And this summer, I think we can look forward to Governor Doyle releasing his plan for school financing. He's been working on it for a couple of years, has a group of people who will announce their work shortly. And our task is to be sure that we are very careful to protect the taxpayer and to spend every dollar as wisely as we can, directed to classroom instruction, to the outcomes that taxpayers are looking for, but more importantly, that parents and grandparents are looking for. We need to have that assurance at every turn. I'm proposing that the QEO be retained because I think it does protect us, but that within the QEO we have a great opportunity. I think that we can build in measures that provide merit pay incentives to our teachers, and that those kinds of incentives will lead to greater professional satisfaction, professional development, more influence for teachers within the administration of their schools, more control over instruction in the classroom, and will lead us to a more highly skilled, more satisfied, more long-term teaching staff. I think that that is leadership that needs to come from the Department of Public Instruction in the short term.
Mr. Rose? Steve Van, I will give this next question first. There's an ongoing debate among Wisconsin education leaders to implement a mandatory statewide test for all Wisconsin students. Do you support a proposal to mandate a standardized test in Wisconsin?
I think one thing that we would want to avoid is over-testing and sort of inundating people with testing. But if there was a single mandatory statewide test given, and my preference is to be given at the end of the school year, then I think the idea could have some real merit if it was at the same time in conjunction with lowering some of the other testing.
Thank you.
I'm going to acknowledge I had trouble with this question. I'm really not in favor of expanding the standardized tests as they exist right now because I think that we don't get the results back fast enough. They're pretty shallow in terms of what they measure, and they're not being used to change the curriculum, so what's the point? If I'm interpreting it as a graduation exam, I'm not for that. I've seen that used in Ohio, and it doesn't show that kids are any smarter or better. It just shows that they're better at taking a test. Now, I'm not against tests. I think there are a number of tests that could benefit public schools and private schools as well, which I think is where this question was aimed at. And we can use formative evaluations, we can use portfolios, we can use IEPs. There are a number of excellent tests out there, but I'm just not, the way the question was worded, I wasn't in support of that.
I believe that the people in Wisconsin expect accountability for results, but that's the key difference here that I just said about Wisconsin. Right now, we're in a position where our accountability system is based upon a one-shot-in-time standardized test that's given in the fall. We get the information back to the schools in the spring. We pass out whether people did well or didn't do well in the summer. It's an idiotic system. We absolutely have to change it. The test is fine. It serves a very small purpose. We have to have accountability, not for Washington, D.C., but we have to have accountability to the taxpayers and the students and the parents of the state. We have to have a rich, diverse, multi-tiered system of evaluation and assessment that includes the type of things that happen every day in our classrooms. And the key on this whole issue is that we need to kind of dial back the accountability piece on that test and include these on the standardized test, the once-a-year test, and include include these other more rich, valuable learning experiences and evaluative experiences that go far beyond that accountability test. That's what our parents want to judge our schools on. That's what our taxpayers want to judge our schools on. That's what they deserve. We are presently in the process of changing this system. First of all, we have a new regime in Washington that seems more amenable to the process. I've been working for the last 8 years on the national level to make those changes. We can make those changes and make them happen soon. So there is good news for accountability for results in Wisconsin for Wisconsin kids.
I do not support mandatory testing for our private schools in Wisconsin. I think that first we should make sure that our Department of Public Instruction is doing everything humanly possible to correct some of the racial disparities in our public schools and some of the service lags in some of the schools that fall under its direct authority currently. Our private schools are measured by their own measures of success. Families choose schools freely based on things like how many students go to college and how many of them graduate and what kinds of careers do they hold. How often do I get to speak to my teacher? When can I come and go in my school? What are the types of subjects that are offered here? Our private schools have a high-quality course offerings, very rigorous curriculums, and often offer more AP courses and have international baccalaureate programs. And those are the things that families are looking for. After all, they pay their tuition to attend private schools. I pay that tuition currently. I know why I chose the school for my sons, and I don't need a test to tell me how well they're doing or how well their peers are doing. I see it every time I'm in that building. I see it every time that I'm welcomed in and that I'm part of the family of our private school. So I don't think that testing holds any value and is overly restrictive, and DPI should take care of the things it's responsible for now first.
First of all, I strongly believe in data-driven decision-making. It's one of the keys to turning any school around, because you need to analyze where kids are, how well they're doing, and what kinds of things you need to work on for improvement. So as far as a standardized test, even back when I first started in education, I was a parochial school teacher. I taught 3rd and 4th grade. We gave the Iowa test of basic skills. Parents were interested in the results. I mean, it was a one-shot deal, and they would use that to see how well our school was doing. In Wisconsin, we have the Wisconsin Knowledge and Concepts exam, and that also is a kind of a one-shot deal. But what's nice about it is it gives some sort of accountability to the taxpayers. I firmly believe that any taxpayer-supported school, and I don't have a problem with choice schools in the city of Milwaukee, because I really believe it's a civil rights issue. But as a taxpayer, when I'm putting money into a system, I want to know what my return on investment is. I want to know if I'm paying for your child to go to that school, I want to know that your child is being successful. Not as a punitive thing, but if there is an issue, I also believe in collaboration and working together. And I came from an area in northern Wisconsin where we actually had a joint council on education, where the public school administrators sat with the parochial school administrators. I think that's something we should do across the state. Our goal as adults is to provide the best educational opportunities for our kids, period. And we need to find a way to do that. Thank you.
Next question first goes to Todd. Todd, as you know, the Qualified Economic Offer in Wisconsin says as long as a school district offers a union a 3.8% increase in both combined salary and benefits, they can avoid arbitration. Governor Knowles indicated in several interviews that he wants to eliminate the Qualified Economic Offer, and also has talked about possibly eliminating revenue caps, what schools can spend per student. Do you support your position eliminating both the QEO and revenue limits?
I believe Governor Doyle has said two things, and we're not sure exactly where he stands on this just yet. He did say that the new increase is no increase, and I categorically oppose that. No increase is a reduction, and further services are going to be cut, and we're seeing that happen in many districts. I'm opposed to the QEO, and I'm opposed to the revenue caps because I think that public education largely is of local character and of local governance. They're your schools. You should be able to work out and figure out and cost out how much you need for your school and how much you need for your teachers and make a case for it. Teachers should have collective bargaining rights. I want teachers to be fully in the middle class. I think that they deserve to be in the middle class, working and teaching and not having to moonlight or look for other jobs or look over their shoulder and figure out how they're going to pay the bills. I want the teachers to be fully resourced. They're doing the most important job out there. And I'm an advocate for fixing our school funding formula. We start by getting rid of the QEO and start by getting rid of the revenue caps and really start thinking about how we can resource the schools differently so that we don't keep coming back to referendum and people being pitted against one another. I think we can do better.
I think you have to look at the qualified economic offer issue in a couple different contexts. But on a broader one, it's the impact on our schools and our ability to function. The qualified economic offer has been cited by 1/3 of the teachers that have left the teaching profession in the state of Wisconsin. They've identified low pay as one of those items. Well, certainly a wage-free or a wage control such as this contributes to that. Our ability as a state to maintain our ability to retain and recruit highly qualified teachers is impacted by the amount of money we pay. Right now we are $3,000 less than the national average, and we never were in that place before. So those are big picture issues that really do impact the quality of our schools, because as we all know, the most important variable in schools is a highly qualified teacher. So we just can't ignore that part of it. But dialing back to a more kind of personal issue, the fact of the matter is that I believe the qualified economic offer is patently unfair. It restricts bargaining rights. There's only one group of individuals in the public service in the state of Wisconsin that are impacted by this, and it's wrong and it should be repealed. In turn, I believe that the repeal of the QEO has to happen in a much broader context and much broader conversation that we should be having right now. That is, whether we talk about arbitration law, talk about bargaining law, talk about revenue controls, talk about QEO, talk about taxation policy. We can try to address each one of these individually, but every time we do this, each one individually, we fail at each one of them. We have to have a comprehensive conversation with the legislature. The state superintendent and I, as state superintendent, will lead that conversation.
We should give credit where credit's due. I believe that the revenue limits citizens should be able to exceed those by referenda if they see a need in their community. And as I said earlier, I believe that we need to retain the QEO, but have great opportunity within that structure to institute merit pay, and that it will pay off in other dividends also. I will mention, though, that every time that we talk about school financing in Wisconsin, there is an elephant in the room, and that elephant is the floundering of the Milwaukee Public School District and the Department of Public Instruction's failure to recognize that problem, let alone take a role of leadership in defining the way out for that district, is a deplorable failure to not only the children in the city of Milwaukee, the generations who have suffered being trapped in a school district that doesn't serve them well, but outstate. In every district in Wisconsin, we are paying the costs for that floundering. Whether you look at school costs or our social program costs, our court costs, our even in our prison system, we're paying the cost for the failures in that district. And I think that here during election time, when every 4 years we have an opportunity to look at what this department should be doing for us as a state, we have to look very, very carefully for the ways that it has been failing us. And the Milwaukee Public School District deserves attention, and you'll find a detailed turnaround team plan for that district on my website.
This has been a debate since the QEO went in place, and I want to give you a practical example. Why, on one side of the debate, people say it's unfair. And I'll give you an example with 3 kids that are sitting in the front row. One's a 13-year-old daughter of mine, and she's really good at negotiating raises in her raises for her weekly allowance. Her 2 brothers aren't as good at it. So mom comes in and says she's doing too good a job. She's capped at a 3.8% raise. Boys, you can keep going for as much as you want. On the other side, my wife says we can't afford to keep paying her just because she can talk you into doing whatever she wants. So the fairness issue. But now let's talk about the reality of it. 3.8% has been a floor, not a ceiling. Teachers have settled for 4.5% to 5.5% over the past 10 years. We're going into a recession. People are going to be asked for wage compensation. We're going to guarantee that one person, that one group, a 3.8% wage and benefit increase. As a fiscally conservative taxpayer, I don't think that's appropriate either. I would like everybody to be on the same playing field. I would like to eliminate it basically to save the taxpayer money. That's my first and primary reason. And if you have to ask me which side do I fall on the fairness, I'm impressed by the teachers willing to still work to get rid of the QEO, even though with no changes in mediation and arbitration, they know they will probably end up losing money over the next several years by doing it. So that commitment is also impressive to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the removal of the QEO is apt to result in a spiral that will lead to increased property taxes. I think foreclosures are at the root of our economic crisis now, and anything that increases property taxes would exacerbate that problem. So I do not believe that the repeal of the QEO is a good idea at this time.
Now, I believe I have time for one more question. If I cut it down to 90 seconds for each person, Matt, can you do that? I think so. All right, great. Let's see, who do I have next? Tony, you go first this one, I believe. Got that right? Tony, Wisconsin School Choice Program is currently capped at 22,500 students per year. Do you support expansion of the school choice program? In addition, are there any reforms to the current program you would like to see initiated?
Thank you. That for the last 8 years, I've played a lead role in being the department's chief policymaker relative to public school or to the voucher program in Milwaukee. And so this is something I have great familiarity with, and frankly, I think for those people who are part of the program, there might even be some in this room, that I would be recognized as someone that has been able to bring together a rather disparate group of people around some very important pieces of legislation. One of them, a landmark piece of legislation that actually for the first time, we were able to create that everybody agreed with financial accountability, operational accountability, so that we felt confident that kids in the choice schools were able to function safely, and the schools themselves operate with as great efficiency as possible. That's been my experience, and that's the experience I'll continue to bring to the plate on this one. But in turn, as part of some of those landmark legislation pieces we had in the last year relative to the voucher program, we did indicate that we were going to have a longitudinal study to evaluate and to take a look at the effectiveness of the program. And all the parties agreed that that is something that we felt was absolutely necessary in order to make sure that parents had confidence in the program, make sure that the state had confidence for this $100 million investment. That study is yet ongoing. And until that study has some rational conclusion reached, I think it would be premature to say that we should be taking a look at expanding the program. In addition, I also believe that we have to take a look at a few more transparency issues. I think it's in the best interest of all parents in the city of Milwaukee to make sure that we're able to have quite transparent data there so that parents can make the wisest choices possible among MPS, charters, and the choice program.
As an enthusiastic supporter of options for families, I support the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program completely. I believe that when there is demand for increased slots for those schools that are some of the most exceptional schools in the state, those slots should be available. What Dr. Evers didn't mention is that the Department of Public Instruction fought expansion of the cap the last time, and we believe that the cap will be exceeded within about a 2-year period of time. That will be during the tenure of the next superintendent of the Department of Public Instruction. And if I hold that office, there will be no fight over that cap. The children in the city of Milwaukee who cannot move to find better schools need the schools that are part of the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program desperately. Those are exceptionally well-run schools. I visited several of them myself, seen them with my own eyes, seen the results in the children that are there. The results are posted on the walls for everyone to see, and that longitudinal study, the first year's data will be released within a couple of months, and I also look forward to that data because I believe it will bear out a model that we should be replicating and not trying to put out of existence.
My father was a pastor at one of those inner city schools and churches in Milwaukee that is now part of the voucher program. So I've seen firsthand why parents in a neighborhood go to a voucher school. I've seen some of the best schools in the nation in Milwaukee, and 3 or 4 blocks away, there's some of the worst schools in the nation. That's why the people that I trust, and when I listen and talk about this issue, I believe it really is a civil rights issue. Milwaukee is a 80% minority school district, and it's the ability to pay to go to parochial schools. They don't have the ability to pay. So if you're in one of those failing schools boundaries and right across the street is like a St. Marcus, you should have the right to send your child there. Now, what I do believe in, though, as a taxpayer, is accountability. And this is one of those times when I really strongly believe the governor has a great idea where he's willing to increase the amount of choice schools in Milwaukee as long as there's an agreement that there's some accountability for the taxpayer dollar. I think that's very important. I think it's imperative. If we improve Milwaukee Public Schools, which will happen when I'm the state superintendent, the choice argument will eventually go away and it'll take care of itself. We have choice because we had failing schools. We should have addressed those schools. In the future, we will address the public schools, and we'll see what happens with choice after that.
I support Milwaukee school choice and believe that legislation should allow for the organic growth. So if you have good schools that grow, we should not cap them. So the organic growth in the program.
I'm against the expansion of the voucher program. I'm the one candidate up here who's conducted research on this program. About 17 years ago, under Professor John Whitty, we visited about 12 of the choice schools. No significant difference in reading scores or math scores between choice schools and public schools. Choice schools were supposed to expand competition in the public. What they've done is drained $60 to $100 million from Milwaukee public schools. If you're looking at a problem in the public schools right now, it's the draining of funds that are coming from taxpayers. Taxpayer money should not be going to private or religious schools. On principle, I'm opposed to it, and I will end it when I get into the state superintendent office.
Thank you, and we are almost right on time, which means we now have time for 2-minute closing statements from everybody. Tony went first, and the last question, so Rose, you can make your closing statement first, please.
Well, we've talked about a lot of things in the last little bit of time. I think it all boils down to, for me, the fact that we need to refocus our State Department of Public Instruction upon the children of Wisconsin. When I look at how the Department of Public Instruction superintendent post fits within the government of our state, it all boils down to the fact that that's one place where the boys and girls that are growing up in Wisconsin need to know that there's an advocate there who always puts them first. For me, there is no other special interest beyond the boys and girls of Wisconsin. I believe that that hasn't been true at our State Department of Public Instruction for all too long. It is a status quo mired bureaucracy where special interests do hold sway and where decisions are made for reasons that are other than what serves the learning and the growth and the betterment of the children of our state of Wisconsin. That has to end. We're going into a period of time when we will be challenged in many, many ways. Our dollars will be pulled in many directions. Many choices will have to be made. We have to have a clear eye for priority and a clear understanding of results. What we are getting for our dollars in education. Children only have one childhood. A third grader has only 1 year in third grade. An eighth grader has 1 year to get ready for high school. A high schooler has one senior year before they embark on the rest of their life. We have every right as parents with children in Wisconsin to rely that our schools are doing the absolute best job, that they're focusing on basics, that they're expecting a lot, that we have high expectations statewide no matter where a child goes to school, that we have the best teachers we can find, that we support them, that we give them all the tools they need. We're talking about children's futures here, not about special interests who have a place, but it shouldn't be at the Department of Public Instruction.
You know, once I got over the original nervousness of standing underneath a glaring spotlight and talking with people I really didn't know real well, I started to enjoy this because I love talking about educational issues. I love talking with people about what can we do to improve opportunities for our kids. That's what my career has been all about. I've worked with communities, I've worked with parents, I've worked with teachers, and every single place I've gone, whether it's in northeastern Wisconsin, in Peshtigo, or whether it's in urban district like Beloit with high poverty and violence, we sat down in those community meetings and we talked about the educational issues. We said, what are our dreams for our kids? What can we do? And then we formalized a plan. We put down community vision and partnerships. We did data-driven decision making. We increased expectations. We did character development in our schools. We extended learning opportunities. We put together strong business and community partnerships. Beloit has one of the only career and tech ed schools in the state of Wisconsin. We're going to be written up in a national journal for it. It's because we sat down and said, what do our kids need to be successful? What can we do to feed the workforce? What can we do so when our kids walk out of high school, they're not one of those statistics that where 70% might go to college, where we only need 20% of our kids with a 4-year degree, where of those 70% that goes, 30% need remedial instruction. We don't want our kids to fall into that trap. We need to sit down as a community. Diverse opinions are awesome, they're wonderful. We sit down, we collaborate, and we come up with the best solution, and we get the best bang for our buck by working with our businesses, especially in times of recession and economic hardship. It can be done. I've done it all over the state. I want to do it for the entire state, so I hope I get your support. And if anybody wants to ever ask me an educational question, I love responding, so please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. Dan?
I believe my academic training in history and economics, my administrative experience, my record as an elected public servant, and my breadth of vision make me the best candidate for Superintendent of Public Instruction at this time. Maybe not at all times, but at this time. But at root, I must confess to you that I am really primarily a teacher. And I will always keep that in mind if I'm superintendent. And I'll always seek to create an environment in which teachers and students can come together and do what they've done for centuries and centuries, which is learn and preserve our heritage of our fine educational heritage in this state. Thank you for coming tonight, and I ask for your support on February 17th.
I also want to acknowledge my colleagues up here. I've enjoyed getting to know them, and I know everyone is very passionate about public education and also for private schools and homeschools. I think there's a place for all of those schools in our great society. I'm not sure why private schools would want more government intervention, frankly. I teach at a private university, and we work with the public schools, and we get some public grants, and some private schools share services like transportation, and I'm amenable to some of those issues, but I don't think that the private choice schools should receive public funds. As a researcher, I've been to Ohio several times, and the disparity there, folks, between rich and poor schools is just appalling. I don't want Wisconsin to go down that road. And Wisconsin right now, through the school funding, the School Finance Network, Institute for Wisconsin's Future, my own colleagues at National Louis University are starting to take steps to fix the school funding formula, but it's urgent. We cannot wait. I'm calling for getting the public involved, and I believe that that includes parents and the teachers and the communities. And I'm a teacher at heart too. And I believe very strongly in this mission, and I do agree very much with Rose when she mentioned that this is not just a managerial position. I think Tony said the same thing too. It's an advocacy position. We have to have somebody advocating for our children, and I'm prepared to do that. I thank you very much for this opportunity and encourage you to vote on the 17th for whoever you choose.
I'd like to take this final comment, time to comment, to speak to you from the heart. I think it's important for people to understand where each of the candidates comes from. And this is something I started talking, my first question, answering the first question about the foundation of our democracy and my passion for public education. But actually my interest in this position also has a very more narrow and smaller role. I have a granddaughter named Tessa, who this year began her kindergarten experience in public schools in Watertown, Wisconsin. And Tessa is just like any other kindergartner and any other child that you know, you either have grandchild or niece or nephew. And what you want as an adult, and that's what I'm talking, I really want to talk to us as a group of adults here. What you want as an adult is to make sure that the child has as good opportunities as you did. And I want that for Tessa. I desperately want that. But I'm also a child of the 60s. I believe that as human beings and as adults, we absolutely have to leave the world in a better place than we found it. And that goes beyond just making sure that the status quo works. That goes beyond just worrying about someone having the same opportunities as I did. We have to do better. We have to do better, and as adults, we have to make sure that we leave a strong legacy for our kids. That's what my campaign is about big issues, making sure that every child is a graduate, making sure that we have safe and respectful and healthy classrooms, making sure that we retain the best and brightest, making sure that we have Wisconsin accountability for results, making sure that we have a fair and sustainable funding system so that our system can thrive. This is our legacy. Please join this campaign. It'll be more than just voting for an individual. We need to together create a new legacy for our children. Thank you very much, and thank you to W. Chris and JR, and for all of you for being here.